Welcome, bienvenidos to Pennington Publishing, your source for assessment-based English language arts and response to intervention reading instruction featuring Common Core aligned curriculum written by teachers for teachers.
Training Module 6, Remedial Grammar, Usage and Mechanics Instruction. Language Standards 1 and 2, and the Language Progressive Skill Standards. Pennington Publishing's Teaching the Language Strand provides comprehensive programs for grades 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Teaching the Language Strand also includes all of the resources for teachers to meet the diverse instructional needs of individual students. The writers of the Common Core State Standards recognize the need for both review and remediation, especially in the language strand. In fact, a critical component of these standards is the progressive language review. The Teaching the Language Strand program has diagnostic grammar and usage, mechanics, and spelling assessments to determine the specific remedial needs of your students. The assessments are administered whole class, and mastery recording matrices allow the teacher to organize instructional materials and to monitor the progress of individual students at a glance. The grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheets are designed to help students master the previous grade-level Common Core Language Convention standards, including the Language Progressive Skill Standards. Each worksheet includes concise definitions of the concept or skill, with examples, writing hints or models, a practice section, and a brief formative assessment. The language of instruction complements that of the language convention's lessons. Students progress at their own rates with the worksheets to master previous grade-level standards. In this training module, teachers will learn how to diagnose and remediate the mechanics and grammar and usage deficits of their individual students to help them catch up while they keep up with grade-level standards. Teachers will also learn a management system to individualize instruction while maintaining a productive and disciplined learning environment. The first task is to administer both the TLS Diagnostic Mechanics Assessment and the TLS Diagnostic Grammar and Usage Assessments. Each assessment is administered whole class and takes about 15 minutes to complete. The teacher, instructional aide, or parent corrects both assessments and charts the individual skills that your students have not yet mastered on the mastery matrices. Record a slash for unmastered skills and leave the box blank for mastered skills. Make 2 copies of the matrices, one for student reference and one for teacher reference. Post one set of the Diagnostic Mechanics and Diagnostic Grammar and Usage Assessment Mastery matrices on a wall at the rear of the classroom for student reference. Note that teachers may choose to list students by identification number rather than by name on these matrices. Keep the teacher copy in a binder at your desk. Count and total the slashes for each of the 72 grammar, usage, and mechanics components to determine how many of each grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheets you will need to copy. Copy these worksheets and group them in separate file folders for students to access. Teachers who have purchased the Teaching the Language Strand program are licensed to place these worksheets on class websites so that students and parents can access them and print them at home. Also copy a half-dozen sets of the Grammar, Usage, and Mechanics worksheet answers, found following the worksheets in the Teacher's Guide. Place these in 3-ring Grammar, Usage, and Mechanics answer binders, in different classroom locations for student access and crowd control. Students will use these binders to self-correct their practice answers after completing each grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheet. Teach students how to complete each section of the grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheets before beginning instruction. The instructional components are the same on all 72 grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheets. Once learned, students will be able to work independently to remediate their own mechanics and grammar and usage deficits. Display one of the grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheets for your students to reference. Read the directions and explain each section of the worksheet. First, read the directions. An adjective modifies a proper noun, a common noun, or a pronoun, and answers which one, how many, or what kind. Explain that modify means to describe, change, limit, or restrict, and that this term is used to talk about relationships between words. Next, read the examples. That park answers which one. Had 2 playgrounds answers how many. And a swimming pool answers what kind. Now read the writing hints section. Note that the student learns and practices the grammar and usage concepts and the mechanics skills in the writing context and not as isolated concepts or skills. Say, adjectives usually are placed before nouns and pronouns. Don't use descriptive adjectives instead of well-chosen nouns and verbs. Especially avoid using adjectives that do not add meaning to a sentence. For example, adjectives such as interesting, beautiful, nice, and exciting do not help your reader understand the nouns or pronouns any better. Be specific as possible with your adjectives. The sympathetic man is better than the nice man. Tell students that the next section has them practice what they have learned in the definitions, examples, and writing hints sections. If students skip reading those sections, they will usually perform poorly in the practice section. This practice section requires students to sort 15 adjectives into the which one, how many, and what kind categories. After completing the practice section, a student will take the grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheet and a different color pen or pencil up to one of the grammar, usage, and mechanics answer binders to self-correct and self-edit. The student finds the practice answers to the worksheet and revises any mistakes with a different color pen or pencil. Note that the student has no incentive to cheat, as credit is only assigned for mastering the subsequent formative assessment. The student does not complete the formative assessment until the practice section has been graded, so that the student can learn from his or her mistakes before completing the last section of the worksheet. The student returns to his or her desk with the worksheet and completes the formative assessment. This formative assessment asks students to compose 3 sentences using an adjective from each category. Use none of the adjectives listed on this worksheet. Be as specific as possible. Note that this short assessment requires students to apply what they have learned in the writing context. When finished with the formative assessment, the student comes up to the teacher's desk to mini-conference. If the student has self-corrected and self-edited the practice section and passed the formative assessment, change the slash into an X for mastery on the appropriate box of the mastery matrix in your teacher binder, and record an A on the student's worksheet. Convert the A to points if you use a point system for grading. For example, 10 points for an A. Note that the teacher determines the level of mastery for each formative assessment. If the student has not yet mastered the concept or skill, you have two instructional options. 1. If the student understands the concept or skill after the mini-conference, direct the student to redo the formative assessment and return for recorrection. 2. Record a check mark instead of an A and direct the student to move on to the next worksheet. The student will have a chance to redo the worksheet after completing the rest of the assigned worksheets. Award half credit, say 5 points, for a check mark. In addition to the grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheets, Teaching the Language Strand provides language worksheets for additional writing practice. After collecting the student workbooks to record grades from the Language Convention sentence dictation formative assessments, you may decide that some or all of your students need more help in a specific writing skill. The language worksheets include practice in subjects and predicates, sentence structure, types of sentences, sentence fragments and run-ons, writing domains or genre, paragraph coherence, writing unity, and parallelism. After completing a language worksheet, the teacher may choose to mini-conference with individual students or in small groups, or simply collect and correct. Here are a few helpful hints to ensure instructional success with the individualized instruction of the grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheets and language worksheets. Tell students to begin with the lower numbered grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheets, and to complete only those worksheets indicated by slashes. Tell them that they won't receive credit for completing worksheets without slashes, because they have already mastered those language convention components. After a student has mastered a grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheet, direct him or her to change the slash into an X for mastery on the appropriate box of the matrix on the rear classroom wall, using pencil, of course. Filling in the X gives students a sense of accomplishment and motivates students to complete additional work and set goals. Don't forget to mark the X in your teacher binder as well. Set an expectation as to how many grammar, usage, and mechanics worksheets must be completed per week. Teachers may choose to have students and/or parents set specific goals. Monitor student progress and adjust expectations as needed. Worksheets may be completed in class or for homework. Maintain a productive work environment by managing time. Limit the mini-conference to no more than 30 seconds. The focus should be on the formative assessment, not the rest of the worksheet. Also, manage crowd control by limiting the length of your mini-conference line to 3 students. Waiting students can sign up for their places in line on the board and then continue work on the next worksheet until their turn arrives to conference. Finally, establish group norms regarding talking, helping peers, and overall work ethic.